How's it going? This is Sean from AZ Education, and today we're back learning our vocabulary, and today we're going to learn words which are important for legal definitions. There is one word in this list. It's word number 2. That word, a lot of people didn't know what that meant. In the CELPIP exam, this question came up, and a lot of people lost marks in writing. So these things are important for everyday life, for also when you watch crime shows, and also for your exams. So let's get into it. Word number 1 for today is accuse. So accuse is pretty common, right? Accuse means to blame someone. So I accused her for stealing my stuff, simply blamed her, without or with evidence. It depends. Word number 2 is capital punishment. So this is the word. So this was a CELPIP question. For those of you doing CELPIP, here's what happened. They had question 1, which was, option A, which was, do you support life imprisonment? Option B was, do you support capital punishment? And this was about a survey within your local office or something. So when people didn't know what capital punishment was and they wrote on it, they said a lot of things. Like a lot of people thought capital punishment was something to do with fines, which is incorrect. Capital punishment, guys, it's actually death penalty. So I think people say it because it doesn't have the word death in it, so it sounds better. But capital punishment means death penalty. So for people who didn't know that, they lost a lot of marks, and that's why it's important to know vocab like this. Going onward, we have number 3, convict. So convict is a criminal. Simple, if you want to call anyone a criminal, you can also say that person is a convict. Same thing, not a big difference. Word number 4 is jury. So a jury is a group of people, and I don't know if it's in other countries. I know it's really all over here in North America. So in courtrooms, there's a group of people called jury. The jury looks over at the case that is being discussed in the courtroom, and they give their verdict or their final decision. So they're the people who make the decision on whether the person is guilty or innocent. That's jury. The next word is misdemeanor. Misdemeanor is so common. I've heard it so commonly in movies and TV shows. I didn't know the meaning of that until today while I was making this list. I googled misdemeanor. So misdemeanor, guys, apparently it means a crime that is not too serious. Okay, so if I did maybe a little bit of shoplifting and nobody pressed charges against me, I was just caught on camera, maybe it might be considered a misdemeanor in a lot of states. So it's not really a huge crime, but it is a crime nonetheless. The next one is parole. So a lot of times in movies you will hear this too. In movies we have villains, right? So we deal with villains. So there's always this thing about parole. So if you are on parole, it means you're on an early release from jail because you had good behavior. So parole is actually a really good thing for you. It means you were released early, basically. That means you're on parole. The next word is subpoena. Subpoena is a very common term in legal terminologies. It means it's a formal request or an order, I would say an order, to appear in front of the courtroom or in the courtroom. It's an order because court doesn't really request stuff, so they will order you to show up, and that means they're issuing you a subpoena, noun, or you're being subpoenaed, that is the verb, you're being subpoenaed on July the 5th, for example. The next word is a combination of 2 words, press charges. So you would hear this again in movies, right? I want to press charges against this person. So if you press charges against someone, you are putting them in a situation where now they have to go in the courtroom and deal with the judge, or you're telling the police officer that, okay, this guy needs to be arrested, he did something wrong or she did something wrong. So when you press charges on someone, you are implicating them in the crime, saying that they're the criminal and something needs to be done about this person. The very next word is verdict. Verdict is something we have discussed before on this channel. If you guys remember, a verdict means the final decision made by the judge or made by the jury, made by the courtroom that determines whether the person is guilty or innocent. And that's the verdict, which is the final word. The next word is forgery. Forgery is a very common thing, especially nowadays, and unfortunately, it's seen in scams and frauds. So forgery is a fake documentation or something made which is fake. So if I have my boss's signature that I need for something, my boss says no, so I just take a piece of paper, copy his signature. So I am forging his signature, and what I'm doing is committing the act of forgery. So that is illegal, and that is something that is doing something fake or drawing up a fake documentation. The very next word is perjury. So perjury is when you're lying, when you take an oath. So in the courtroom, you take an oath, you say, I'm not going to lie, I promise I'm going to be a good boy, and then you lie anyway. That is called perjury, all right? That very act is called perjury. It's another crime as well. And the next word is proprietor. So proprietor, you might have heard of sole proprietorship and the word proprietor very commonly in businesses. So a proprietor is basically the owner of a business. And when you're summoned into the courtroom, you're called by a lot of names. You're called the victim, you're called the accuser, or you can also be called the suspect, for example. But if you're a business owner, you can also be called by your title, which is a proprietor. The very next word is void. So when you void something, you basically cancel that thing. For example, I wasn't able to show up in court even though I was the one who initiated this case, so I just voided my own case, which means maybe it's no longer going to be relevant because I didn't show up. So if anything is canceled, you can say it's being void. Okay, the next word is legit. Legit is the same thing as legitimate. So legitimate, if you don't know that, legitimate means legal. I want to have legitimate dealings with my business partners. That means I want to have legal dealings with my business partners. But legitimate or legal sound very long. So what a lot of people say is legit, but that is informal. The formal way to say it is legitimate. So legit is okay as long as you're being informal. And the final word for today is default. So default is when you default to make payments. Okay, so you're presented in the courtroom, someone is blaming you because you defaulted on your rent, on your car, on your mortgage. So it means you weren't able to make the payments. And that's where you default. And that's usually a very bad circumstance to be in. And that is the 15th word. So these words will really help you when, if you yourself, God forbid, are involved in any legal situations, or mostly what happens is we watch movies where we have villains to deal with, and we need to know these legal terminologies just so we can understand things better. Please like and share, subscribe as well if you find value in this video, and I'll talk to you very soon. Take care.